All right, honest question, guys. Is 2 weeks into August too late to film my July wrap up? Um, I'm running a little bit behind. But anyways, i what month am I in? July was a little bit of a slow reading month for me. I only think I finished 5 books, 1 physical copy, and 4 audiobooks while at work or on the road. So definitely less than last month, but I'm also in the process of working through 5 books at the same time right now. So hopefully August will have some bigger numbers and some more to talk about. As you know, I've recently hit 1,000 subscribers. This should be one of the earlier videos in this series of 7 videos I'm releasing, at least, which are going to be coming out every other day for the next 2 weeks. Yeah, as I mentioned in one of my newbie tags, you guys are kind of the reason I keep doing this. If it wasn't for the social pressure, I probably wouldn't be filming these videos. So y'all support, comments, likes, and subscriptions really motivate me to make more of these. And I can't thank you enough for that. But let's jump into it. The first book I finished reading this month, or I guess rather last month, was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. So your quintessential self-help book. And in this book, Dale Carnegie breaks down basically tactics and methods on how to talk to people. So the title itself kind of seems kind of shitty, like it almost could read as how to get one over on people. But I really think that an alternate title would be How to Be Really Agreeable and Hopefully Get Your Way. Because basically a lot of the foundational methods he talks about in this book are basically telling people that you're listening to them, acknowledging what they're saying, not undercutting them, and then playing off of that to sympathize with them in order to basically have yourself be heard. Which, it's all super viable tips for being a conversationalist. You know, if somebody is angry, like a customer is angry at you, sympathize with them, let them know you're hearing what problems they say they're having, and then you can start the conversation thereafter. You know, if you just deny everything that they're upset about, you're not going to get anywhere. And a lot of this book is very foundational stuff that you've probably heard before, but reading this book will reinforce those habits. Personally, I found myself using a few of those at work, and it's really, been an improvement on my conversations. That being said, this book comes in fairly short, at around 260 pages, and it doesn't need to be that long. You really have about 15 tips, and it's broken into chapters corresponding with which grouping they're in, but it basically lays out what the idea is in that chapter, then tells you 5 stories to try to reinforce it, which helps drive the point home. But really, if you read the tip, read the first story, and you get it, you don't need the remainder of what's written. So you could plow through this book in realistically 50 to 75 pages. That being said, it felt a little fluffy, but it was a good read. Probably recommend this 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 stars for me. Up next, we had The Tangled Tree by David Quammen. Basically, The Tangled Tree, the title is going off of the Tree of Life, from Darwinism, evolution, and what have you. Natural selection, diversifying species. And it basically says that instead of a singular tree branching out, that we actually have this tangled mess of branches. And the key reason that this title is what it is because we're talking about horizontal gene transfer, or specifically when viruses or bacteria trade mutations. This is most notably the case in antibiotic resistance. We see these superbugs coming out, and when you introduce antibiotics to a system, it'll kill most of the bacteria, but sometimes you'll have survivors that have a certain mutation. Now, what bacteria and viruses can do is transfer this mutation between 2 living organisms. You don't have to pass it down via reproduction. It can just go sideways. And this book talks about that phenomenon. It is really interesting as a concept. The book, however, very dry and I wouldn't say unenjoyable, but hard to get into. It reads as if it wants to be The Gene by Siddhartha Mukherjee, and it falls short. It combines memoir with scientific research and kind of tries to create a storyline to reel you in and drag you along with the educational process. But it feels, I don't want to say half-assed because it feels like it was trying really hard, but it just wasn't as engaging. So it was a really cool concept, has a really cool like kind of tidbits and facts, like how we can experience horizontal gene transfer mainly through the microbiome in the gut, and how 8% of our DNA is actually the DNA of virus, which is super interesting, and I want to dive into the implications of that. But besides that, it wasn't the most enjoyable read. I'd probably recommend this book if you are specifically interested in genetics and you've already read The Gene or Hacking Darwin or a few of the other books on this topic, because it gets you thinking. But the text itself, the way it was written, wasn't terribly engaging. So 3 out of 5 stars, would recommend. I don't know which order the videos are going to come out in that I'm filming these 7, but in one of the tags, I'll leave it ambiguous in case this comes out first, I mentioned one of my favorite books of the year, and that is 21 Lessons for the 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari. Now, if you've seen my prior videos, you already know I've read Sapiens as well as Homo Deus, so this kind of rounds out my reading by Harari. And as a quick reminder, Sapiens was great, changed my worldview. It still sounds cringy saying that because everybody recommends it, but neither here nor there. Then Homo Deus felt a little flat for me. So Sapiens talked about the past of human society. Homo Deus talked about far future, specifically like artificial intelligence and biotech like that. And then 21 Lessons for the 21st Century was a hit. It talks about the problems in our near future, specifically what do we as humans need to tackle in the 21st century. And every page of this book was engaging for me. They talk about politics, they talk about religion, they talk about biotech and infotech, and how these two fields are going to basically disrupt everything we know. That sounds a little over the top, but as you read into it, it kind of becomes more clear how big of an impact these two technologies will make. And yeah, just every topic in this book, from politics to religion to self-driving cars to what have you, the way it was written, regardless of if you care about those individual topics, like I know some of you do not care or give a shit about politics, but the way it's written makes you care. And this is a 5 out of 5 book for me. It was one of my top books of the year, and read it. Book number 4. We had The Coddling of the American Mind by Jonathan Haidt and Greg Lukianoff. Now, this book was written by 2 self-proclaimed centrists that have said they've only voted Democrat in the past. And the reason I mention that is because this book gets a lot of hate, mainly because the topic it talks about slightly bashes social justice as well as how politics are handled on the college campus. Some of the hate it gets is probably deserved because it, in my opinion, kind of disproportionately attacks that side, but they also talk about neo-Nazis and some right-wing issues as well, and the disproportional response. But let's back that up. This book in particular talks about how Americans, especially the youth, like millennials and Gen Z, are growing up into a college campus in which we have increasing anxiety, depression, mental disorders, as well as have a need for safe spaces, and how reactive they are to any disagreements. They almost write this book as a warning of if we continue down this path, that we will lack the ability to have honest disagreements and honest conversations without hurting one another's feelings, and taking that as a form of violence in which we disengage with. It's almost as a warning against halting the progression of ideas. I didn't agree with everything in this book. I did like hearing all the stories from both sides that they portray here. And I do think it's a interesting read and an important read if this is a trend that keeps happening. If we truly try to isolate ourselves into echo chambers and not listen to the other side, I think this is a good book for that. So I would probably recommend this. It was a interesting read. The way it was told was very engaging. It didn't feel dry or hard to pick up. So I'll probably recommend this. Personal rating was about a 3 out of 5, 3.5 out of 5. And if you're interested in politics, specifically on American college campuses, this is a good read. Then finally, wrapping up July. Hey, I got the month right. Well, wrapping up July, I had Dan Harris's Mediation for Fidgety Skeptics. This is the second book he's written about meditation. I've talked about the first one, 10% Happier, last year, I believe. Last year I talked about that. And that was a good book. It was 10% Happier was his memoir about how he, as a secular skeptic to meditation, picked up meditation to solve issues in his life, like a addiction to adrenaline from being in a war zone to a drug addiction, cocaine, and then kind of settled his life, made him a better husband and better at his career. This book specifically talks about a road trip that he had across America trying to teach people meditation, specifically aimed at skeptics. Now, this book itself is not one I would recommend immediately. It's written for a very specific audience in mind, that secular skeptic that has dipped their toes into the water of meditation. This isn't going to be an intro to meditation. This is basically a how to do meditation if you are part of that demographic. Throughout the book, it combines memoir-style writing about his tour with his personal problems, and then teaches you how to address certain problems with specific meditation techniques. That part of the book, I found engaging. I liked it, and I tried a few of the meditations. It's very specific meditations for specific problems, like what if you want to meditate but you get too tired. You know, it tells you to lean into that. Practice this meditation where you basically become self-indulgent on your sleepiness. And it has about 10 different meditations that address certain things like that. Overall, it was a good book. If you are part of that demographic, it's probably a 4 out of 5 or 5 out of 5 read. If you're not part of that demographic, it's a 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. So depending on where you fall on that spectrum, I'd say either pick it up or don't pick it up because of that. And yeah, so that's the 5 books I've read. Is it 5? 5 books I've read in July. Hopefully I've got a lot more coming to you in August. It's been a good reading month so far, and a lot of good reads. I'll link that account below as well. As always, if you like this content, leave me a like, leave me a comment, tell me what you would like to see me read and what you thought of these books. In addition, subscribe if you want more. See you around.